Hi,
Uh,
Gary. How are you, Gary?
I have a little cough, but my wife has gone out for cough medicine. In fact, she's brought it in. If I drink enough of it, I'll probably get a buzz. Laura, cough medicine, please. I'll go, I'll go and
No,
get it. I hope she got some strong stuff for me. I really feel now embarrassed that I even mentioned coldness when I now see the snow behind you.
yeah, it's nice though.
Okay,
Gary, Gary, you've worked with so many people. I'm so happy you accepted to be on my Zoom. And let's do for people, well, the few who maybe don't know you, not many, I guess. You were born in London, UK. You still live in UK. Uh, you started to write songs very young, at 15 years old.
that's true. Yes, yes. Um, I couldn't help it. It runs in the family anyway. My uncle was a top session sax player. My brother-in-law was Kenny Jones from the Faces and the Small Faces and the Who. My father was Tony Osborne, musical director for people like Shirley Bassey, Eartha Kitt, Johnny Mathis. Um, he conducted the last concert that Judy Garland ever did. And so the people around my house are all people in the music business. And of all those people, the guys that look like they're having the most fun were the songwriters. So I decided I always wanted to be a songwriter. And it's almost worked out.
Almost. And you skipped school at 15 to start writing.
Well, I didn't skip school. What it was, I went to school I was at theatrical school from the age of 8 to 11. And so I was in TV commercials and bit parts. I was a kid who was too sick to go out and play soccer with his friends. And this is so long ago. This commercial was in black and white. And then they gave me something called Lucozade to drink, and I miraculously became well and fit. And I went out and scored the winning goal. Now, the thing was, because I was at theatrical school, instead of doing sport in the afternoon, we did theatrical stuff. So I had never actually been in the presence of a football. So they literally had to get a stunt double to kick that goal. They saw me celebrating after it, so that was my showbiz debut, really, the little boy in the Lucasade advert. And then from the age of 11 to the age of 15, I went to school in Switzerland. And I started writing on the summer holiday, the summer vacation, and I just never went back. I wasn't allowed to leave school at 15 in this country. But the thing is, the authorities in England didn't know I'd left school in Switzerland, and the authorities in Switzerland didn't know I hadn't joined a school in England. So I'm very badly educated as a result. A theatrical school where they teach you very little. And then everything in Switzerland I learned in French, which means as soon as I forgot my French, I forgot everything I'd learned. So then I was only really fitted for being a songwriter.
And
I
you
couldn't.
wrote for Nana Mouskouri at 15 years old.
Yeah, that was my first recording was a song in German. And in fact, ironically, because I became known as a lyricist later, but my very first recording was my tune with a German lyric, with a Greek person singing it. And yeah, I was 15, and they thought that was quite interesting, so they flew me to Berlin and put me on the TV with Nana Mouskouri as the youngest songwriter in captivity. And then they showed me the Berlin Wall, and then they sent me home again. I don't think anybody bought the record, but it was nice to at least at that age to get onto a record. It was just already you thought, well, I might be on the right track. Maybe there is a future in this for me.
And you never stopped writing after that.
I never stopped. Well, recently I stopped. The last couple of years, I haven't been writing until last week when somebody sent me a tune and I liked it, and then I started working on a lyric for it. And I said to my wife, I'd forgotten how much fun it is. I mean, it's not fun when you can't find that rhyme, but when you find the line and you can't think, why did I think of that? That's such a good line. How can I have thought? And and it's so great. You run around the room hugging yourself and high fiving yourself, and it's a wonderful feeling getting that line. That the line that makes the thing make sense and that fills the gap, um, and so I got that thrill back again last week.
That's great. That is great. And I saw you wrote for Olivia Newton-John, Anne Murray, Cliff Richard,
Yeah.
Kiki D,
Yes, of course.
Alice Cooper, and Elton. So,
Yeah,
and many more.
there's a few others as well. I had a very nice version of a song done by the Righteous Brothers, and
Yeah.
also one of the Elton and I had a lovely cut from Randy Meisner from the Eagles, which was a great honor because I'm, like all sensible people, a great fan of the Eagles. And then something I wrote with the lovely Richard Kerr, my late friend and songwriting partner. We had some nice cuts and a nice one with Peter Cetera from Chicago. And I mean, I haven't set the world on fire, but of course Justin Hayward with the and other.
Forever Autumn.
Yeah, and the other people that have recorded the two versions of the War of the Worlds we had. So I had Phil Lynott, who was one of my great heroes from Thin Lizzy. He did one of my things, and Gary Barlow from Take That. He did a version of Forever Autumn. I've been very lucky. None of these things have made me any money, mind you, but well, a little bit maybe
I hope.
along
I hope.
along along the way.
And Amoureuse with Kiki D. How come you kept the French title? And that song is, I know that song in French from Véronique Sanson because in Quebec, in Canada, we had Véronique Sanson here. I never knew it was in English until a few years ago with Kiki D. And
Yes.
she sings it beautifully. But
He
how come
does
you
sing it
can
beautifully.
how come you kept the French title of that
I think
song?
that keeping the French title of that song was one of the mistakes of my career. Um, I didn't. I couldn't think of a title, and I didn't think it was going to be. Look, the thing is, when you start and you don't have much success, you keep going. You have a little bit here, a little bit there, but nothing really, really. You don't have a hit, and you start to think that you're never going to have a hit. And in order to protect yourself from too much disappointment, you assume that everything is not going to be a hit. And I, like every other song I'd written, assumed that Amoureuse was not going to be a hit. So when it came to thinking of a title for it, I was under a lot of pressure. I had to write 4 lyrics for Veronique in a weekend. And it also happened to be the weekend I broke up with my partner, who I'd been living with for 2 years. So it was a very emotional weekend, and I still had to write these 4 songs. In fact, I got a friend of mine to co-write 2 of them with me because I just didn't have the time to do all the work. So I got him to start them, and I finished them. And then I had to fly to Paris to record them on the Monday after the weekend of writing, and the thing didn't have a title, and I just kind of said, "Oh, just it's a lovely word, amoureuse, which means for those who don't speak French, a woman who is in love." We don't
Yes.
have that word. We don't have a word like that. We have someone who's in love, and that applies to male and female. But amoureux is a man who's in love, and amoureuse, and I just loved the sound of it, and I thought I'll keep it. But this was a mistake because uh, when the American publisher got that, the English are kind of a little bit attuned to French, and at
Yes.
least curious enough to, because we're nearer to France, at least curious enough to wonder what it might mean, and they kind of accepted it in England. But in America, the publisher, I remember his name, it's emblazoned on my heart. He said, "Oh, we can't have that," and he got his girlfriend to write a new lyric, and that it became called Emotions, and that split the copyright. So Amoureuse was a hit here and in many other territories, but in America, the biggest territory, Helen Reddy did it with a totally different lyric, and I don't think that would have happened if I had have given the thing a more sensible title. But no title really jumped out at me. So uh, anyway, you can't change the past. And how lucky I was that Kiki did it so beautifully, and Olivia did it. Olivia did that song as well, very, very prettily as well. And it was my first hit. And it is, in fact, the song that I owe everything to, because Elton produced Kiki's version of it. And so then that through that song, I met Elton. And then I wrote a couple of lyrics for the album that Elton was producing with Kiki. I wrote one with Davy Johnson and Kiki, and one with James Newton Howard and Kiki. And Elton, having heard Amoureuse and those two songs, I mean, we were friends anyway, but one night he asked me to write a lyric for him. And so Amoureuse led directly to me working with Elton. That led directly to Blue Eyes, which bought the house I'm sitting in. So I have everything to thank that song for.
It's such a crazy story. And for Elton, you wrote 50 songs, 31 of them were released, and
I
16,
don't. Are
and
you
you sang
sure?
on 60. Yeah, that's John Higgins who told me that.
Oh well,
And
if Higgy said it, it must be true. But I never thought it was that many songs. But there were a
yeah,
lot of
and
songs. There were quite a lot that never got recorded. I think
yeah,
that
and you sang on 16 of them also. People do people know that you sing you sang back vocals on many songs?
Yeah, I sing on quite a well. I made a living while I was waiting to be successful as a songwriter. You have to make a living doing something. So I used to sing TV commercials, which brings us back to my days as the boy who couldn't kick a football on the Lucasade ad. And I sung on a lot of hit records, backing vocals, and so when I started writing with Elton, he didn't have the band together. Now, of course, the band. One of the great things about Elton's records was the fantastic backing vocals of Davy D and Nigel. That
Yeah.
three supremely talented men, and also three guys I absolutely adored. And but they weren't around. So Elton said, "Oh, come and sing this harmony for me," and because I had been a vocal contractor, I was a booker. So I organised the singers for other people's sessions. And so he said, "Can you get me three girls, or can you get me this, or can you get me that?" And so I did. But the people in America, in terms of backing vocals, would probably be most familiar, those that are old enough, with the backing vocals on a song called Little Genie, which I wrote with Elton. And I really loved doing the backing vocals on that one, particularly at the end. There's a section where you stepped into my life from a bad dream. I have a cold, so I'm not going to do
Yeah.
any more of that. And I can actually, usually when I do backing vocals, I can't hear me because I kind of blend in. But I can actually hear myself on that record, and it gives me a thrill every time I listen to it. I also get a thrill knowing that if I'm hearing it on the radio, I might be making some royalties as well. That's part of the thrill.
Little Genie was a hit in USA.
Yes, I know.
Um,
Thank goodness it was. Yes, it was a month at number 3 in the charts. And also, according to Elton, who's a great one for statistics, he always said to me that, in fact, although it never made number 1, which would have been great, and I guess, it sold 2 million copies. So, 4 weeks at number 3 is probably the equivalent in sales of being 1 week at number 1. But Elton claims, and he was absolutely certain, that it was his longest chart run in America, that it took so long going up, then stayed still for a month, and then came down very slowly, and that the amount of weeks it spent in the charts was the longest of all his hits. That's what he said. I've no way of checking that. I suppose maybe John Higgins I should consult over that. He'd probably be able to disabuse me of my fantasy in that respect.
I think you're right. I think you are right.
Oh,
And
well.
usually Elton is very good with statistics about his songs. He follows them, so
Yeah,
he
he's
does.
yeah, but he's just he likes statistics about all sorts of things. It isn't because he's so into himself that he wants the stat on everything that to do with himself. But if he's bored, he'll sit down and he'll just make a list of every American vice president of all time, and he's got that kind of a mind, and or some other thing that that just takes his fancy, and it's an orderly mind, I suppose. Anyway, it works for him.
It does. It does. And you had Blue Eyes also was a big hit. Still is. But you didn't
I
like
know
that
people.
song that
People.
much.
It's funny that because everybody seems to love that song, certainly more than I did, because I didn't really like it much. It wasn't that I didn't like it. Obviously, everything he does is good, But he gave me 5 tunes one day, and that was the one I liked the least. I just thought, well, it's a little corny, and also he would often give me some tunes, and then I would spend. That nobody works as fast as Elton. Nobody writes a
Yeah.
tune as fast as Elton. Nobody. I don't think anybody in the world ever has written. I mean, he said when I arrived at 1 o'clock, and he said, "Where have you been?" And I said, "Well, you said 1 o'clock," and he said, "No, I said 12." But I said, "Well, I think it was 1, but it doesn't really matter. What have you been doing?" He said, "I've written 5 tunes, 5 tunes in an hour," and they were all recorded. On album tracks, on B-sides. One, "Take Me Down to the Ocean," was in a movie called Summer Lovers. They were all got used. Ball and Chain, which was on one of his albums. And but sometimes when I came back to him with the lyric, which takes considerably longer to write, he would say, "No, I've gone off that tune." And he wouldn't, it's not like he'd look at the lyric and then say, "No, I don't want it." He would say, "No, I don't want to see the lyric. I've got the lyric for that one." He said, "No, I've gone off that tune." I said, "Well, have a look at the lyric." "No, I've gone off that tune." And when he said, "Well, if he's gone off it, he's gone off it. What am I going to do? Just get over it." So what I would try to do was guess which one he wasn't going to want. And of those 5 tunes, I thought, nah, he's going to go off that. In all honesty, he was he was infatuated with a certain young gentleman at the time, and I thought, well, the romance will end, and he won't care about the tune anymore, and maybe so I kept leaving it and doing the other 4 until one day he was in Montserrat recording, and he kept. This is so long ago. There wasn't email. We communicated by telex. There wasn't. This is before even fax machines were invented. Can you believe that? And he kept phoning me up and saying, "Have you done Blue Eyes yet?" And I said, "No, no, I'm just finishing this one on Bat Ball and Chain. I'll get to it." And one day he went in and recorded it, recorded the backing track without a lyric, and he sent me a cassette. And I thought, Christ, I thought he really means it, because he's actually cut the damn thing. And that was the quickest lyric it's only two verses, but it's the quickest thing. And 2 hours later, I had that thing on a telex going back to him, because I thought, well, he might send it to Tim Rice or Bernie or someone else, and I don't want to miss out. So so that was the quickest lyric I ever wrote, really. And I'm certainly very glad I did.
I'm sure you are. And what was the first song that you wrote for Elton?
The first song I wrote with Elton was called Shine On Through. And it starts I think it's the first track on, but it's certainly on the Single Man album anyway. We became very good friends after Amoureuse was a success. And for a couple of years, we were just friends. There was no writing. There was no talk of writing. No hint of. I now see, perhaps, that it might have been somewhere in his head before we actually did it. But certainly, so he was around my house one night. We were just, hanging out. My partner, the wonderful Bob Halley, was there, and maybe we were playing backgammon, watching videos, having a laugh, playing music, just the kind of stuff you do with friends.
Yes, yes.
And I don't know, to about 2 in the morning, 2 in the morning, he sat down at my piano. In fact, it's my father's piano, a beautiful grand piano in the house, which I still have. And he sat down and played this tune. And as the last note died away, he said, "What do you think of that?" And I said, "Well, I think that's absolutely beautiful." He said, "Well, why don't you try writing a lyric for it?" And I just couldn't believe it, because he hadn't written any songs with anybody other than Bernie. I mean, he had not written anything with anyone else. And not only that, but he'd not written anything that way around, with the tune first. But it was such a beautiful tune. I said, "Well, hold on, because I wouldn't want to upset Bernie." I said, I really didn't know. He said, "Look, write the damn thing, because Bernie doesn't work that way." And and then I think he told a little fib. He said, "Anyway, Bernie's heard the tune, and it didn't really appeal to him." Now, I'm not sure that was true. I think he was just making me feel at ease. But it did put me at ease to the extent that I said, "Well, do it again, and I'll put it down on this cassette player." And he sung it again and put it on the cassette player. And then we continued to party, and he left at about 4 in the morning. I said, I just casually, "Well, I'll have a little think about that tune." He left at 4 in the morning. I had the damn thing finished by about 7 in the morning.
Wow.
Most of it finished, the bones of it were done. I mean, I wasn't going to let a chance like that. I wasn't going to let a tune that beautiful get away from me if I could help it. What I didn't really realize was that this was my audition.
Yeah, probably.
And that there was, I think, a plan. I think there was a plan, because it turned out later that John Reid seemed to know about it. And so maybe it had been discussed. I think now, it was only years later that it occurred to me. And funny enough, when I saw that film, which I did not enjoy, Rocket Man, but there's one reference in it where he and Bernie are having a little disagreement, And he says to Bernie, I'm thinking of writing with somebody else. And Bernie says, well, I think you should. Now, I know that conversation never took place, but it made me realize that if it had taken place, that would have been before we wrote anything. And
Yeah,
it was clearly a reference to me. Anyway, the song turned out nicely,
it
and
did.
uh, he um, he was retired at the time. I mean, he wasn't
Yes.
recording. This was about 2 years since his last album, which was Blue Moves, which is such a beautiful album. Um, and of course, there's no money in managing a guy that's retired. So it was very much in John's interest that Elton got back into the studio, because if he got into the studio, he would do some stuff, and that would maybe then he would feel like maybe he should promote that stuff, and therefore then
Yes.
he would be out of retirement, and that's exactly what happened. We went in to make a demo of Shine On Through, and during a tea break, he wrote another tune, and he said, "Here, give this one a go." And suddenly, I was writing with Elton John. I mean, if I'd only ever written the one song, that would have been enough for me. You know, that would have been wonderful to on my CV. That would have looked really nice. And of course, over here, it has a special place in the hearts of many, because it was featured quite spectacularly in the highest rated variety show ever on British television, which was the Morecambe and Wise Christmas show.
Exactly, exactly. I saw it, and
And
he did a sketch with it also with
well, he
uh
finished it. He was very mean, because he said to me, "I'm going to do that song on the Morecambe and Wise Christmas show." And I mean, that was incredible. And then he recorded it, and I didn't tell anybody, because these things often don't happen. And if I go around telling
yeah.
I got the Morecambe and Wise Christmas show, yeah, they're going to say, "Oh, sure," because people didn't even know I was writing with that. Oh, yeah, me and Elton have written this. Are you mad? Go tell another lie to somebody else. But then he phoned me the day after the day he recorded it. He phoned me from the car on the way uh, from the studio. He said, "I've cut it now. I've done it." And he said, "How did it go?" He said, "Oh, yeah, I won't tell you too much about it, but it's really good." So now I told everybody. I told my mother. I told my father. I told everybody. I told Jeff Wayne, who I've been working with on the War of the Worlds. I told, and then I was so nervous the day that it went out on Christmas Day. All my family were in the house. They were in one room, and I was all alone in another room, all alone. I couldn't watch it with any of them. And the show went on, and
And
Elton was featured in the show, looking for the studio to record the song.
I
And then
with his flowers, and yeah.
the show finished, and the credits rolled, and I thought, they've cut it. Oh my God! I've told everybody. They're all in the other room. I'll never be able to leave the house. I'll never be able to leave this room. They're going to have to put my food under the door. I am too embarrassed. And then, after the credits rolled, he came on and did a fabulously funny bit with Morecambe Wise.
I remember.
And then he recorded the song.
He played
Performed.
it.
So I was able to leave the room and live a normal life, or a fairly normal life thereafter.
Oh, he did a fabulous job. This song is, and it's funny as hell also to see him looking for the studio. All it's that's a that's a
Oh, it's so
classic.
cute that he would walk into they'd say, he said, "Where's this?" He's got a piece of paper with the studio written on it. He said, "Where is this studio?" They said, "It's in there." And he goes in, and there's a famous newsreader reading the news. And then he points to a door, and Elton goes through that door and falls into a canal.
Yeah,
And
I
then
know. Woo!
the conceit was that they decided that he was too expensive. And therefore, having invited him onto the show, they realized that if they actually used him, they'd have to pay him. So they decided not to use him. But then in the end, he sung it, but he sung it to the cleaning ladies
Yes,
at the
I
end of the
know.
show. But of course, the cleaning ladies were, in fact, Morecambe and Wise.
Yes, that
And
that was it. If anyone hasn't seen this, they have. It's on YouTube. It is
yeah,
hilarious. It
it is
is
lovely.
funny. It is funny. How was it to work with Elton? He's funny.
Working with Elton is just the best. This is it. Obviously, I miss the money,
Yeah.
but what I miss most of all is actually working with Elton because it's so easy. Now, I don't know about other people how they find it, but far as I was concerned, he gave me a tune. I would take it away, and a few weeks later, I would bring back some words, and he would just walk in and sing them. Now, that is not the normal experience of a lyric writer. The lyric writer usually has then to argue with the tune writer for a couple of hours because the guy doesn't like this line, or he doesn't like that word, or he doesn't like the title. And then you try to convince him, and then you don't convince him. So you go away and change it. Or, you know, there's all sorts of other processes that go on. But he just reduced it to, I'll write a tune, you bring me the lyric, I'll sing it. I mean,
And
that's
he never changed anything. He never
he
complained
changed.
about
Well,
anything.
you say there were 50 songs.
Yeah,
I
50.
I can I can remember about 30 of them,
Yeah,
but he
31.
only
31 were released, but
well
you wrote 50.
he,
Yeah.
he only ever asked me to change one word in one song.
And which one was it?
Well, it was a word in Little Genie. I said, well, he said, I don't like that word. Could you change that word? I said, nah, it's really difficult to change that word because of the way the structure is. If I change that word, there's another word which rhymes with it. So I have to change the whole line if I change the word. And I also have to change the line that it rhymes with. And I have to change the lines. Basically, I have to write a new verse. Now, if you really want a new verse, because, hey, I'm used to rewriting for people. This is so unusual for you to ask me. I can't say no. So obviously I will do it. But I really think that it's okay as it is. But I'll do it anyway because that's what I do for a living. And every now and then I would say to him, he would say, have you got that new word in Little Genie? And I'd say, well, I'm working on it. I'm working on it. But I mean, you sure you haven't changed your mind or anything? He said, no, no, no. That word it just irritates me. So just change it, change it. And it went on like this for a few weeks, maybe a month. And finally, one day we were in the studio, and he said, it took me a couple of days to write Little Genie. I take quite a long time because I like to do a bit and go away and come back and do a bit and come, that takes. So I usually like to take about a week. So maybe it took a week, but it took a month to write this new verse. And finally I had it. And then a couple of months later, he said, right, we're going to go we were in France and at the Super Bear studio up in the Alps, lovely place. And he said, I'm going to do Little Genie today. I said, oh, great. I said, I've got the new verse here. He said, it's okay. I've got used to the old one. So the one word that he asked me to change, it never got changed. And the word
And
was strikes. Oh, Little Genie, you got so much love. And you take it where it strikes and give it to the likes of me.
likes of me.
And the strikes and the likes, I wanted that internal rhyme. So, to change it, I had to rewrite the whole verse. And somebody asked me the other day, well, where's the new verse? What's it? What did it say? I can't bloody remember. I tore it up The minute he said he liked the original, I tore the thing up. Now I wish I had it because that'd probably be quite a collector's item.
Probably, yeah.
What I might do is write a new verse now, pretend it is the old new verse, and see if I can get anything from a memorabilia kind of guy. Yeah,
Well,
put it on.
I'll have to cut that part of the video then.
Oh, okay. Really? Okay. All right then. I won't be
That's fun.
doing that. I won't be doing that.
No, that's too
So,
funny though.
in actual fact, he never ever got me to change anything. And the funny thing about that is that I got him to change loads of things because since I started out writing tunes and I play guitar and not very well, of course, but um, I would make suggestions. Oh, well, why don't you take the tune up there instead of down? Or why don't you repeat that line? Or I would make suggestions. And we had a fabulous, again, it's why it was so great working with him. We had a fabulous arrangement, which was that I could make any suggestion I liked and he could ignore it. And if he ignored it, no, but that was perfect. If he ignored it, then I guess he must have been right. And if he decided to use my suggestion, then I guess he was still right because it was his decision to use the suggestion. And one time, my God, I don't know if Bernie ever did this to him, but I actually rewrote the whole chorus of one of the songs that we were writing. I changed, I rewrote, I said, when I came in to bring in the lyric for a song called Return to Paradise, I don't remember which album that was on. I'm trying to
I'm
think.
not sure.
Well, anyway, it's a nice song, and it was also featured in a film, a movie called Oh Heavenly Dog, which was a dog called Benji, who was voiced by Chevy Chase. Anyway, when I took the thing away to write the lyric, I noticed that the chorus was very similar to the chorus of another tune, of another song, and I figured eventually, yeah, it's on
It's on
there, is
this
it?
one. Yeah, it
Right.
is.
I figured that would he eventually would work out that it was a little bit like something else, and he would. Oh, hang on, I'm having notifications coming in. I've just won £1.50 on a horse.
That's good. You can have dessert.
It's not good. It's not good at all. I put £10 on, and it came back for £1.50.
Okay, that's not good.
Okay. Sorry, that's distracting me. So I thought, well, he's going to notice that he's plagiarizing somebody. Well, anyway, it would be my duty to mention it. The co-writer would always mention that, you know. So, but while I was doing it, I thought, well, I wonder what we could do. And so I wrote a tune. So when he said, right, where's the lyric to I'm going to go in and sing Return to Paradise now, I said, well, I've written a new tune for it. He looked at me like I'd gone mad. And in fact, when you think about it, this was the first album we'd done. I had gone mad, really. I said, no, what I mean is that you might notice that the original tune is very similar to this other song called Jamaica Farewell. And he let that sink in and he ran it over in his head. He said, Christ, you're right, it is. What are we going to do? I said, well, as I said, while I was writing the words, a tune occurred to me that would fit over those chords because we'd already done the whole backing track. And so we went in another room and we put the tape on and I showed him the lyric and I sung him my tune. And he said, yeah, that'll do. And he just walked out and sung it. He probably doesn't remember it. He probably thinks he
Probably,
wrote
yeah.
that. He probably thinks he wrote that tune. But I tell you what, to qualify the fact that I actually contributed a little piece of melody there, he contributed a lot of words to the lyrics that I wrote for his tunes, because what we would do was he would sit at the piano and he would sing whatever rubbish came into his head. the first thing that came into his head, he had a tune, and just to make it so he could demonstrate it, he would just sing anything. And famously, of course, when Paul McCartney first wrote Yesterday, he didn't know what the lyric was going to say, and he called it Scrambled Eggs. Oh, my darling, you've got lovely legs, or whatever. So he would sing that kind of nonsense. And I figured that if there was any point in him writing with someone other than Bernie, with the tune first, it was that he had been singing for 5 or 6 years, Bernie's feelings, Bernie's thoughts, Bernie's emotions were being put into the songs because the lyrics were coming first, and Elton was taking the lyric and turning the poem into a song. And I figured, well, if I could just put a little bit of that rubbish that he's singing into each song, then there's a little bit more of him in the song. And because we were very good friends and I knew him very well, I knew how he felt about things. And so, between me using, so often I would use his title. Little Genie was his title. Blue Eyes was his title. They were good titles. Why would I change them? Why would I think, well, that was one time I did want to change the title. And he would always say, use the title if you want to, don't bother if you don't want to. Whatever you like, it doesn't matter. Only one time I said, I'm going to do a different title on Blue Eyes. He said, no, I'd like you to keep that title because of the boy. He was a lovely lad. Vance was super, super lad. And he wanted to keep it because Vance had blue eyes. And so that was the only time he insisted on keeping the title. And I wanted to change the title because I had for many years written with Richard Kerr. You all know Richard Kerr wrote Mandy.
Yes.
Looks
Yes.
Like We Made It.
Yes.
I Know I'll Never Love This Way Again. He's one of the great songwriters, no longer with us now, I'm very sad to say. And his first hit had been called Blue Eyes. And I didn't want to piss him off. Oh, Richard's going to think, oh, that's nice. But Elton said, well, screw Richard. You're keeping that title. And I said, hey, I agree. Screw Richard. I'm keeping that title.
What would you have called it?
Yeah.
Do you remember?
I don't know. I thought maybe I'm calling it Huge Thighs. Baby's got huge thighs. Then the rhymes would have still worked. Actually, there aren't any rhymes for Blue Eyes in the song, but never mind. Anyway, so, it was only fair that me having used so many of his words in my lyrics, it was only fair that at least once he used my tune in his song.
And dear God, that's his words also, or mostly his words, I
Well,
think.
no, all the words in Dear God were mine other than the title.
Okay.
Every other word in it was mine. But what I did do was say, how do you feel about God? We haven't really talked about religion. Are you very religious? Are you, how do you feel? Because I don't want to say something that you're going to feel uncomfortable singing. And he said, look, I kind of believe there's a God, because I'd like to believe there's a God. But right now, I'm a little pissed off with him because he doesn't seem to be doing a great job. Here we are, he's put us here, and we could use some help. And I said, right, that's it. It's a letter to God, and you're saying, please, though we failed you, don't fail us, is one of the lines, and I'd say at one point in the song, we sometimes forget what it was you created us for. But then I end up by saying, do you sometimes forget what it was you created us for? In other words, you put us here, and how could you let us get in such a bloody mess? Dude, help. by God, today we need more help than ever. So please,
We
God,
do.
help us, give us a hand. Eh?
That's such a beautiful song. It is.
Well,
It is.
it's a beautiful tune, and you'd be a fool not to give it a beautiful lyric if you can, you know.
You sang at Central Park in 1980, I think. You sang back vocals there.
No, I was there, but I didn't sing. No, I
You
would have
didn't.
loved. No, I would have loved to have sung. The only time I ever appeared on stage singing with Elton was, I think it was Earl's Court. It's on. There's a video of this performance. Uh, he after the 2 years of retirement, he wanted to do a gig for a football charity,
Okay.
and Elton's Davies' band China, which he had going with James and Kukula Presti and a couple of other guys. They happened to be coming over to do some gigs in England, so he used that band, added Ray Cooper to that band, and then asked me to provide myself and two other singers. And I got Chris Thompson, who's one of the greatest singers, famously as the lead singer for Manfred Mann at that time. He sang that wonderful performance of Blinded by the Light for the Manfred Mann. And his partner at that time, Stevie Langer, was one of the very top session girls. And I'd been using her, and I knew them because they were dear friends. So the three of us did the backing vocals, and it was a super gig. And Kiki got up and did Don't Go Breaking, and Stevie Wonder got up and did Bite Your Lip, Get Up and Dance, and we did the backing vocals. And the only sad part about that, not the only sad part, but one very sad part, is on the video of it, you can't hear us at all. You can see it.
No.
I looked so cute, but as far as you couldn't hear us, I mean, I hope you could hear us in the room, but the recording for the video of it, I've seen it on the TV, and it's heartbreaking because there we are singing our socks off, and you can't hear us. And then, of course, the other thing about that was that during the rehearsals, he'd said to me, we were having such fun at the rehearsals. He said, you know, I'm going to go back on the road, and I want to take this lineup. Would you come out on the road and do backing vocals for me? I said, in a heartbeat. This is such fun. Can you imagine? I mean, I'm a backing singer, and Elton's now he's asked me to write them. Now he's asked me to sing and go out and get limos and fancy hotels and get paid for doing it. Unbelievable. So there came a point during the show where he was apparently he was in a bad mood beforehand. Something happened in the dressing room. I mean, I really don't know quite what. I will find out, by the way. Uh, and so there came to a point where he said, you know, I haven't been on the road for a couple of years. And I thought, here it comes the announcement. And he said, and I just want to say now that I'm never, ever going back on the road again. And I thought, Christ, yesterday he hired me. And today he has just publicly fired me. And in fact, he fired a lot of us. And I will get to the bottom of what happened to make him in such a bad mood. I will find that out. But anyway, the fact of the matter was that we never did go on the road, so it was just that one gig. But I did, as you know, sing on lots of his tracks.
Yes.
I even sung on tracks that I didn't write. I sung on tracks that Bernie wrote. I sung on Hey Hey Johnny. Was it Empty Garden?
Yes.
His song about the death of John Lennon, which Bernie.
Yes. Empty Garden. Yeah.
There were a couple of songs on that album. I think it was the Jump Up album.
Jump Up album. Yeah.
Yeah, there were a couple of songs on there. Everybody went away and left, and I didn't. Davy was my dear friend, and he still is. I never
That's
see
this
him.
one. This one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you look carefully, you'll see there's a little. Well, there's a picture of Vance, by the way, the lad I was talking about on the cover of that, jumping up. If you've got the gatefold version, and
Let me check.
there's also a
Oh,
picture of my.
your son? I don't think I have the gatefold version. I don't think I have, but let me check. It's
Does
been a
it not
long
open
time
up?
since oh, maybe.
Is there a little boy? Yeah, on the inside there.
Yes,
There's a little boy in Watford outfit. There he is on the right at the bottom. That's my son Luke. He's
this one.
he's a 45-year-old man now. That's Luke.
Wow,
And jumping even higher on there, that's Vance, who Blue
this
Eyes
one.
was written about. Blue Eyes was written about him.
Wow,
I mean, the story wasn't about him, but the song was dedicated to
this
him, I should say. Yeah.
dedicated to him.
He's no longer
Yeah,
with us now, I'm very sad to say, but he was a lovely lad. Anyway, I can't remember. Oh, yeah. When everyone went away and we were working in the studio at Montserrat, which of
yeah.
course sadly exists no more because the volcano on
The
Montserrat
volcano. Yeah.
destroyed the whole island uh, and indeed the studio. But I knew, and Nigel I knew quite well because Nigel had recorded one of my songs on his one of his solo albums. He did a solo album.
He
He did
did. He did.
and he
What was
did
the song?
a song
Um,
called "The Songs I Sing."
the songs I sing. That
The
yeah,
songs
I
I sing.
remember that
Well,
song.
we wrote it as the songs I write for Richard Kerr to sing on his album, and then just changed right to sing, and Nigel cut it there. So I knew Davey very well. I knew Nigel's, but I didn't really know Dee very well.
Okay.
And suddenly I found that Dee and I were going to do the backing vocals on the album. And everybody else left, Elton left, everybody left, and just left us in a hotel in Antigua. And we got on very well and we became friends. And every day we would get a plane over to Montserrat, which, the whole thing took about an hour, hour and a half. And then we'd sing and then we'd go back. And the only problem with it was that people had assumed because Dee was one of that team that David E. Nigel, who did all that great backing vocal work, and I had done backing vocals on some other of Elton's songs, they assumed that that would be perfectly fine for us to do the backing vocals. However, neither of us was a high singer. See,
Okay.
in the Elton John band, all the top harmonies, the highest harmonies,
Nigel. It's
were
Nigel.
Nigel,
Yeah.
and then I think maybe Davey was usually in the middle, and D would be the low voice. He would either be the low voice or the middle voice, and I'm always either the low or the middle. I'm no good up in the stratosphere. So we had a lot of fun squeezing certain parts of our body to try to make ourselves sing higher. By the way, that doesn't work. It's just very painful squeezing your testicles. I mean, it's fun, of course, it's fun, but it doesn't help you sing higher. No, it doesn't work. So that it was slightly stressful. The two of us straining for the high note. We got there in the end because, funny enough, if you've got a job to do, you tend to do it in the end.
To do it.
I was going to say, you know, the money made the difference. But when I think back, I don't think I was paid for those backing vocals. So it wasn't about the money. It was about
The job to do.
it was a point of honor that we wanted to get it right.
Yeah. Do you have any funny memories or something that means a lot to you in recording all those albums and working on all those albums? Because you worked on um, 21 at 32, A Single Man, Jump Off. Which one did you work also
I did
on?
at the Fox. The Fox.
The
I
Fox,
worked
the
on,
Fox.
and then I
Chloe
had
on the Fox is
yeah.
such a
I,
nice
I
song.
had
Yeah.
three. I had all the songs on Single Man. About sort of about three or four on those albums, and just one on the Leather Jackets album. A song called "Memory of Love," which was almost a good song. Um, so I actually worked on five albums all together, and
Yes, yes,
there was a lot of something that we don't have now called a B side, which is
yes,
which used to be a wonderful way of earning a living, because you get paid the same on the B side as you got on the A. You didn't get money for the performances because they were performing the A side. When someone was on the radio, it was Little Genie. It wasn't whatever was on the B side. I think it was Conquer the Sun was on the B side. But you still get, because you can't buy the top side without the bottom. So once Elton said, I said to Elton, tell me, what do you think was maybe your biggest earner? And he said, oh, Me and Mrs. Jones by Billy Paul. I said, you didn't write that. He said, no, but I had your song on the B side. And that was at number one. And I made a packet out of it. So we missed the B side.
yeah.
I missed the B side. I mean, even when Elton and I stopped writing together, there was a few things still in the can, so I still had a couple of B sides came out. I think it was on the back of. Guess that's why they call it the blues. I think I was on the B side of, maybe.
That's a great
It was,
song.
yeah, it's a cracker.
I'd like to ask you a question about a song that's not anywhere from Elton, apart from the recording you have, Sweetheart on Parade.
Oh yeah.
That song makes me cry. And
Well, it was written in tears, um, so it's appropriate that it would make you cry. Um, and it's those of you who have read Elton's book, which incidentally I haven't, uh, but and I don't believe I'm very heavily featured in it. That's not why I haven't read it. All my friends have written books, and I haven't read any of them. I mean, I've looked through them. You look to see if you get a mention. But anyway, one story that is told in Elton's book is the story of the Christmas when he was flying from Australia and his then partner was flying from America, and they were meeting on Christmas Eve back at Woodside, Elton's home, to spend Christmas together. And he'd given the staff, it wasn't a big staff, it was basically John and Jenny who worked there, and Bob Alley, and his wife Pearl, and he'd give them, they all were gone, so he was totally alone, just him and the dogs. And this gentleman, Charles, didn't turn up. And on Christmas morning, my kid's 4 maybe, and he's just about to open his presents, and Elton phones in tears. So what's the matter? He said, Charles hasn't turned up. So you're joking? He said, I don't know if he's dead or alive. I don't know where he is. I've not heard a word. And he was crying. Actually, he cried on the phone to me a few times. But uh, well, Elton had famously attempted suicide a couple of times.
yes.
Uh, and the first thing that hit me was Elton John commits suicide on Christmas Day. I thought, I was going to swear then. I thought, well, I said, Elton, would you like us to come down there? Oh, he said, would you? I said, well, well, what about your Christmas? I said, well, I'll just call my mum and say we're not coming. and we'll throw our stuff in the car, and I'll be down there in a couple of hours. And that's what we did. And during the course of that Christmas day, at one point, he sat down at the piano and started to play that tune. And it came out just like all his other ones, fully formed in the space of the time it took to play it. And as the dying notes faded away, my then partner, my then wife, Jenny, who he adored and still does, he just sobbed onto the piano.
Oh.
And she put her arms around him, and he kept crying and eventually stopped crying. And being a mercenary bastard, I said, "Oh, that tune was bloody lovely. Wouldn't mind playing it again, would you?" And so he played it again, but this time I recorded it. And we said no more about it. I had it on tape. He didn't. I don't know if he knew I'd recorded it, but I would often record if he was sitting playing something. I would often record it because then I would be able to write lyrics to it. We wanted to write. We've been asked to write a song for Olivia Newton-John, and I said, "Oh yeah, I did." I asked. I said, "Look, I want to write a lyric to that tune." He said, "Well, I'm never going to sing it." I said, "Well, it's really pretty." He said, "Well, I'm not going to do it. So I'm never ever going to sing it." I said, "Well, okay. Do you mind if I write a lyric to it and we give it to Olivia? She's asking for a tune." And he said, "Well, yeah, that'll be okay." So I wrote the lyric for Olivia.
Okay.
And it was about somebody who everybody loves, the way everybody loved Olivia and everybody loves Elton. And there he is. Everybody loves him, but the only person he loves isn't
Is
there.
not there.
And so I wrote Sweetheart on Parade for him to send to Olivia. But the problem with that was that he had to make a demo of it in order to send it to Olivia. He had to sing it one time. And he said, "No, I don't think I can." I said, "Because I'll just start crying again. It'll bring it all back to me." I said, "Look, Elton, I've gone to this trouble, and it really is a nice lyric, and it really is a beautiful tune. And could you just do it once?" He said, "Look, I'm doing it once. And if I fuck up, tough, because I'm never going to do it again." And he did it, and he got to the very end, he screwed up. And I said, "Could you just one more take?" Because he said, "No." And that was it. But you know what? We mentioned a person called John Higgins earlier on.
Yes.
And Higgins heard that demo. Oh, by the way, we sent the demo with the mistake at the end to
Okay.
Olivia. And she came back and said, "It's such a sad song. And I'm in such a happy place that
Oh.
it's not right for me." And he was never going to record it, so it just kind of sat on a shelf. Nobody. But John Higgins heard it and he loved it, so he took a piece out of the middle and stuck it at the end, and he made it sound like there hasn't. He took the mistake away from it, and then it got sent to Judy Collins, who did just a lovely version of it. And then Albert Hammond heard it and he wanted to record it. I changed the word "sweetheart" to "hero," and it became "Hero on Parade." That was the only change made. And so we had two very nice versions of it, one by Albert Hammond as "Hero on Parade" and one by Judy Collins with "Sweetheart on Parade." And And so I'm glad you like it. I'm glad you mentioned it because I think that's a rather nice story. And anyone who's read Elton's book will recognize the situation that it was written in.
And that
And
song is, I heard the version with the mistake on it. And
oh, right, right.
that song is it's such a it's too bad he didn't record it because it
I know
is he
he
did
should
a
have
great
recorded it.
job. Yeah,
Yeah,
he
yeah.
should. Well, we're not in his shoes, but it's a great, for the public, it's a great song. Great song.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Um, I read before we finish, I read the foreword to the book, to Elton's biography that Buckley, I think,
David
wrote.
Buckley, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
and this is such I it's like a love letter to someone. It's such a nice thing. I didn't have it, and my friend Jeannie uh,
Well, you're
sent it
talking
to
about
me.
the whole book,
I didn't
or
have
you
the
talking
book. I just had I have the forward. I didn't
Oh,
have the
I
book,
wrote.
and
Oh, yes, of course, I wrote the forward. Right, of
I
course.
remember my friend Jeannie Kinsler. She talked about that, and I asked her to send me the forward, and I read it, and it's such a nice thing to
Is it? You
write.
know something? I've got to go and get that now because
Yeah.
I, it's, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago, and I remember writing a forward, and I have no idea what I said.
Well,
And I hope if it's a love letter to Elton, then I'm very glad because I really love him. I've loved not in a physical sense, but of the men that I have loved, and I mean my fathers, my uncles, my son, and my dear friends. He is definitely one of the men that I have truly loved in my life, and I have, you know, when we stopped writing together, that was the saddest part because Elton is a little bit like the shark. He has to keep moving,
yeah.
and he keeps moving. He doesn't relax. I mean, he relaxes, but he watches a movie, but he's got to keep moving. He's driven. You don't get to be that talented, that famous, and let's face it, that rich unless you've got something that other people have. And
Don't have.
it's not just the talent, it's the drive.
Yes.
And I knew because I'd seen it with others who had been very close to him.
Yeah.
And at the point where I was and we were so close, we'd go to the football together, we'd go to gigs together, we'd spent the Queen's Silver Jubilee together. He came to my humble house so many times and not me to him. We were dear friends, and a lot of that was to do with the fact that he was very close to my partner Jenny as well, and he absolutely adored her, and she him. And but I knew that if we stopped writing together, I would stop seeing him because he moves on,
Yeah.
you know. So people that he was very close to, people like Ray Williams, guys in the various bands, you know, Bowie was the same. They're driven. They move on. It seems callous, but they're actually he's off looking for new adventures, new friends, if you like. He never stops loving them, but he just stops seeing them. And so I've seen so little of him um, since we stopped writing together that is more heartbreaking than not being as rich as I would be if I'd have continued to write with him. Uh, that's
So
obviously
you miss the friend.
I
You
miss the
miss the
fun
friend.
and I miss the friendship. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah. Well, I can understand that. He's
but don't feel too sorry for me because I'm sitting in a house and one song bought that house, Blue Eyes. Now People say, "Aren't you mad at Elton?" I said, "What have I got to be mad about? Eh? What have I got to reproach him for? One bloody song, and I've been here 40 years, and I hope to be here for another 40. Well, I think that's unlikely.
Well,
So,
I hope you will.
well, is that a nice place to end?
It is a nice place, and I thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for for opening up and talking about all those years. It's such a pleasure to talk to you, Gary.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be talked to.